I found it deeply reassuring to know that you've struggled with this too. Actually, you have a term for it, the practice assessment tapes, that we run these tapes of, how good a meditator I am, where am I on the path? And you actually tell a story, I want to see if I can get you to tell it now, about your childhood misadventures in gardening.
Yes. Not a great gardener, and the not great gardening started when I was about 8 years old and planted my first garden, as best I could as a little kid. And I planted it and, planted the seeds, prepared the ground. And then, as the carrot tops, the greens, started coming up through the ground, I got so excited about seeing them come up, I would pull them out to see how the carrots were doing. Not a very effective way of growing carrots. We do the same thing with our practice. If we're continually checking how it is, we're actually taking ourselves out of the process. As we're going along and, how am I doing? Am I doing better today? Or, it's worse than before. Then we're getting out of the rhythm of simply noticing the flow of changing phenomena. And so it becomes an obstacle. Not only is it an obstacle, it can be discouraging, if we're continually assessing our practice. So that's why I think it's much better to have a sense of looking at the whole idea of progress over a much longer time frame. The Dalai Lama spoke of this. He said, it's good to look back on your practice after 5 years, and to say, okay, have there been changes in your life? Are you a little more balanced? Do you get angry a little less often? Do you kind of catch, speech that may not be so skillful? Can you catch it before you actually speak the words? So those are the signs of progress, and they happen gradually as we're developing stronger and stronger mindfulness, stronger and stronger awareness.
I think it's often the case where the meditator may be the last person to know that there's progress. For me,
Yes.
my first sign of progress when I first started meditating was overhearing my wife at parties telling our friends that I was less of an asshole. And that's when I knew,
Yes.
something's going on.
Right. As we go through the day, as we practice noticing what is skillful and unskillful, we may find ourselves engaged in activities that we know are unwholesome, maybe driven by greed or driven by anger. We may be reaching for the third cookie or about to say some harsh words. And even though we may be aware that we're about to do it, we find that the power of habit is so strong that we're doing it anyway. One very helpful thing to remember as we become aware of these habits of mind, which sometimes overpower our ability to refrain, to say no thank you, is to remember that it's better to do an unskillful action knowing it's unskillful than to do it not knowing it's unskillful. Because even if the habit is strong, and we find ourselves acting in a moment of greed or acting in a moment of aversion, if we can recognize in the moment, yes, I'm doing it and I know it's unwholesome, but at this particular moment, the mind doesn't have the strength to refrain. Just that wisdom of knowing it's unskillful as we're doing it actually is a seed of wisdom. We're planting the seed of future restraint because we know that this action is not conducive to our happiness.